The great station of Velara Prime floated like a shining jewel in the black sea of space. It was not a planet, nor a moon, but an artificial hub built by the oldest races of the galaxy. Towers of metal and crystal stretched upward, their lights glowing like fireflies in the void. Thousands of ships came and went, each carrying representatives of countless civilizations. For centuries, this had been the seat of the Galactic Council, where disputes were settled, treaties signed, and empires argued without firing weapons. On this day, the council chamber buzzed with more voices than usual. Something new was happening. Something that stirred both curiosity and disdain among the older powers. Humanity, a race from the edges of known space, had been granted a chance to join the council as an official member. Many believed it was too soon. Humans had only recently spread beyond their homeworld. They lacked vast fleets, ancient technology, or the sheer numbers of other species. To the proud powers of the galaxy, humans seemed like children stepping into a room full of giants. Inside the council chamber, rows of curved seats surrounded a wide central floor. Each seat belonged to a species, their banners and symbols glowing above them. The chamber itself echoed with layered voices, some deep and rumbling, others sharp and clicking. Hollow screens displayed translations, turning alien languages into words everyone could understand. The Dravari Empire sat nearest to the center. They were tall reptilian beings with golden scales and hard eyes. Their empire stretched across hundreds of systems, and they carried themselves with pride. To them, strength was the only true law. Across from them sat the Zeeth Consortium, a Android, spider-like race with crystalline bodies and a mind for strategy. They rarely raised their voices but moved entire markets with a single decision. Smaller races filled the outer seats, many watching nervously, hoping the great powers would not crush them. Then the chamber doors opened. A single man walked inside, his steps measured, his posture calm. He wore a dark suit, not armor. His hair was neatly combed, his face clean-shaven. To the aliens watching, he looked fragile compared to the armored guards and towering diplomats around him. Yet there was something in his steady gaze that made even the loudest whispers fall silent. This was Ambassador Elias Ward, the first human ever to stand before the Galactic Council. The chamber murmured. Some laughed softly, others tilted their heads in curiosity. A few looked away, uninterested. Elias ignored the reactions. He walked to the center of the floor, bowed politely, and raised his voice. Calm, strong, and steady. Honored members of the council, he began. I come not as a conqueror nor as a beggar. I come as a messenger of my people, the people of Earth. Humanity seeks peace, cooperation, and a future where all may prosper together. The holoscreens repeated his words in countless languages. His tone was respectful, but his eyes never wavered. The Dravari Chancellor leaned forward, his golden scales catching the light. Peace, he said with a sneer. His voice was deep, rough, like stones grinding together. Your kind has barely left its homeworld. You stumble into the stars and dare speak of peace in this hall of powers? You are children, human. Children, playing at empire. Several Dravari guards chuckled, their tails flicking behind them. Other species whispered among themselves. Some agreed. Others remained silent, unwilling to draw the Chancellor's attention. Elias did not flinch. His voice remained calm. Every great power was once young. Every empire began with small steps. Humanity does not claim greatness. We only claim the right to stand, to speak, and to offer friendship. The Chancellor leaned back, unimpressed. His eyes narrowed. We will see if your friendship is worth anything. The session continued. Trade disputes were argued, border skirmishes discussed, alliances weighed. Elias listened, spoke when needed, and never raised his voice. Yet throughout the day, many watched him closely. The Zeeth noted the way he sat, perfectly straight, balanced like a soldier at rest. The smaller species whispered that the human was brave to face such open scorn. The Dravari, however, grew more amused. When the meeting ended for the day, the delegates left in groups, their guards surrounding them. Elias walked alone, carrying only a small data pad. The grand corridors of Velara Prime stretched endlessly, their walls lined with glowing panels. It was there, in a quiet stretch of hallway, that the shadows moved. 3 Dravari enforcers stepped out from the side passage, their golden armor gleaming under the lights. They were tall, broad, and carried the scent of arrogance. Behind them, 2 more blocked the way out. "Human," one hissed, his forked tongue flicking. "The Chancellor speaks, and you think your words matter?" Elias stopped. He looked at them calmly, his eyes steady. "I spoke as my duty required, nothing more." The second enforcer snarled and shoved him backward. Elias staggered but did not fall. His hands remained at his sides. "You think you belong here?" The first continued, circling him. "This hall is for the strong, not for fragile creatures who still fear the dark." The third enforcer stepped forward and struck Elias across the face with the back of his clawed hand. The sound echoed in the empty corridor. Elias's head turned with the blow. Slowly, he adjusted his tie, straightened his jacket, and looked back at them. His voice was quiet, steady, almost gentle. "Are you finished?" The enforcers laughed, sharp and cruel. One leaned closer, whispering, "Remember this lesson, human. You speak when allowed. You walk when permitted. You live when we decide." Without another word, they turned and left, their laughter echoing behind them. The corridor returned to silence. Elias stood still for a moment, his hand brushing lightly against his jaw where the strike had landed. His breathing was calm, controlled. He lifted his datapad, checked it as if nothing had happened, and continued walking. But behind his calm eyes, old memories stirred. Memories of nights spent in battle zones on Earth, of silent missions across hostile worlds, of orders carried out in shadows. He had left that life behind, choosing diplomacy over war. Yet he knew one truth better than most. Peace was only possible when others respected your strength. And tonight, strength would speak in ways the Dravari could not ignore. The council chamber slept, but the station did not. Ships still docked, markets still hummed, and shadows still moved. Somewhere deep in the corridors of Velara Prime, a storm was already forming, silent, unseen, and waiting. For the Dravari thought they had humiliated a weak man. They did not realize they had touched a flame that would not burn quietly. Elias. Ward walked on, calm and composed. To every eye, he was still the polite diplomat, still the newcomer unsure of his place. But beneath the surface, he was something far more dangerous, something the galaxy had yet to understand. The next morning, the council chamber was alive again with noise. Ships had arrived overnight, carrying new envoys and more guards. The banners of many worlds shimmered across the wide chamber, each one glowing like a flame of pride. The smell of different atmospheres mixed in the air, ozone, spice, and oils burned by species who believed the scent of their homeworlds gave them authority. Ambassador Elias Ward walked in as he had before, quietly, calmly, without guards. His suit was freshly pressed, his datapad in hand. To most, he looked like nothing more than a soft-skinned official from a young world. But the Zaith, ever watchful, studied the way his eyes scanned the chamber before he sat. They noticed how his hands never shook, how his breathing was steady. They whispered silently among themselves, though no one else heard. The Dravari Chancellor sat tall in his golden seat. His scales gleamed under the chamber lights, and his sharp teeth caught the glow as he smiled. He leaned forward, his deep voice carrying across the floor. "Ah, the human returns," the Chancellor said. "Tell me, little one, did your rest refresh you, or do humans tire easily from words heavier than they can carry?" A ripple of laughter echoed from his guards and a few allies. The smaller races shifted uneasily, not daring to speak against him. Elias stood, his expression calm. "I rested well, Chancellor. Words never tire me. They are lighter than weapons, and yet, if chosen carefully, they are far sharper." The chamber grew quiet at his reply. It was not loud, not boastful. It was measured, controlled. The Zeeth made a faint clicking sound as if amused, but the Chancellor's smile hardened. Sharp words from a fragile tongue, the Dravari sneered. Tell me, human, how many wars has your species survived? How many worlds have you held when stronger ones came to take them? We Dravari conquered whole systems before your kind learned to tame fire. Perhaps, Elias answered softly, but every child grows. Some grow faster than others. The words struck deeper than the tone suggested. The Dravari hissed, their tails lashing in irritation. But Elias did not press further. He sat back down, as if the matter was closed. The rest of the meeting was spent on disputes between other empires. Trade routes, tariffs, and mining rights filled the chamber with endless debate. Yet many eyes still turned toward the lone human, who had dared to answer the Chancellor without fear. When the session ended, the corridors filled once again with diplomats and guards. The air buzzed with whispers. The human's calmness had unsettled some, impressed others, and angered the proudest of all. Elias walked alone again. His steps echoed against the polished floors. He knew he was being watched, but his face remained unreadable. He had learned long ago that silence could speak louder than words. It was in one of the quieter hallways, lined with tall windows overlooking the stars, that the trap was sprung. 4 Dravari enforcers stepped into his path. Behind him 2 more appeared, blocking the exit. Their golden armor gleamed under the lights, their reptilian faces twisted in mocking smiles. Well, if it isn't the little human diplomat, one said, his voice full of scorn. The Chancellor's toy. Do you think you embarrassed him today, with your clever words? Elias stopped, his eyes calm, his tone even. I did my duty, nothing more. The second enforcer stepped closer, his claws tapping against the wall. Your duty is to know your place, and your place is beneath us. Without warning, the third shoved Elias hard against the wall. The impact echoed, but Elias's body did not crumble. He straightened his jacket, his eyes still locked on them. You should be careful, he said softly. Actions speak louder than words. What will the council say if they learn of this? The first enforcer laughed, a low, rough sound. The council will hear nothing. The cameras here do not work today. Accidents happen after all. The fourth enforcer stepped forward, raising a clawed hand. With a swift motion, he struck Elias across the face. The sound cracked like a whip. Elias's head turned slightly with the blow, but his eyes returned, calmly to the attacker. He did not raise his hands, did not defend himself, did not shout. He only breathed slowly, steadily. Are you finished? He asked quietly. The enforcers exchanged looks. Some laughed, others growled in irritation. To them, the lack of fear was another insult. One leaned close, his breath hot against Elias's face. You are nothing here. A weak little voice among lions. Remember this, human. Your life continues, because we allow it. Speak out again, and perhaps tomorrow you will not be so lucky. They shoved him once more, then turned and walked away, their tails dragging across the floor as they laughed. Their footsteps faded into the distance, leaving silence behind. Elias stood still for a long moment. He lifted his hand, brushing the red mark across his jaw. His breathing was calm, but behind his eyes something else stirred. Something old. Something dangerous. He adjusted his tie, straightened his suit, and continued walking. Anyone watching would see nothing more than a quiet diplomat returning to his quarters. But beneath the calm surface, a decision had already been made. The station's night cycle began. Lights dimmed across the great towers, and many of the delegates retreated to their private quarters. Markets closed, engines silenced, and the endless noise of the day faded into quiet hums. But in the hidden corridors where security cameras failed, shadows moved. Later that night, strange reports began to spread. A Dravari patrol team failed to check in. When security forces searched, they found the team unconscious, weapons dismantled and scattered across the floor. No alarms had sounded, no signs of struggle marked the walls. Another squad vanished soon after, discovered hours later stacked neatly in a storage bay, every one of them breathing but powerless to explain what had happened. Rumors began to flow like water through the station. Some whispered of mercenaries. Others claimed it was sabotage by rival species. But the details remained the same. No deaths, no blood, no alarms, just silence and efficiency. By morning, fear had begun to creep even into the proud Dravari ranks, and, in his quarters, Ambassador Elias Ward sipped a cup of tea. His suit hung neatly, his datapad rested on the table, and his face was calm. To the world he was still the polite human diplomat, soft-spoken and restrained. But the Dravari had made a mistake. They thought they had humiliated a weak man. Instead, they had awakened a soldier who had mastered the art of war long before he ever learned the language of peace. And the galaxy was about to learn that no insult came without consequence. The station of Velara Prime never truly slept. Even when the lights dimmed for night cycle, ships still docked and undocked, merchants still whispered in side markets, and guards still patrolled the long metal corridors. Yet something had changed, in the air. Something quiet, something unseen but deeply felt. The Dravari had laughed the night before when their enforcers told the story of humiliating the human diplomat. They laughed at his calm response, at his refusal to fight back. They laughed because, to them, his silence proved weakness. But when dawn came, the laughter stopped. The first report reached the Chancellor's private chamber at the beginning of the Council's morning session. A squad of his guards had been found unconscious, every weapon stripped, every comm device smashed. None of the victims could explain what had happened. They only remembered walking their route before the world turned dark. The Chancellor dismissed it as clumsiness. Perhaps they had drunk too much. Perhaps they had been caught in a prank by lesser races. He ordered silence, not wishing the news to spread. But within hours, another squad was discovered in the same state. Then another. By the time the third squad was found neatly stacked in an empty cargo bay, even the proud Dravari could not hide the truth. Whispers began. Rumors spread like smoke. Some said it was a phantom. Others spoke of mercenaries hired by rival powers to humiliate the Dravari. But one detail unsettled everyone. No one had died. Not a single wound had been fatal. Whoever the attacker was, they had fought with perfect precision. And yet in the council chamber that morning, Ambassador Elias Ward sat quietly at his seat, his suit perfectly pressed, his face calm. He greeted every delegate with polite nods. When discussions began, he took notes with care, speaking only when asked. But the Zeeth noticed. They were creatures of crystal and sharp edges, their bodies glowing faintly with inner light. Their minds worked like webs, catching details others ignored. And they saw how the human sat, not like a frightened diplomat, but like a soldier at rest, balanced and aware. They saw how he moved, each gesture efficient, no motion wasted. And when the Dravari Chancellor raged about the humiliation of his guards, Elias did not even blink. "Who dares strike the Dravari?" the Chancellor roared, his voice echoing across the chamber, his tail lashed against the floor. "Who hides in the shadows like a coward?" No answer came. The other races remained silent, unwilling to draw his wrath. Some looked away. Others stared with hidden smiles, secretly enjoying the Dravari's shame. Elias lifted his eyes, his tone calm. "Perhaps the question is not who strikes you, Chancellor. Perhaps the question is why." The words fell gently, but they struck like blades. The chamber stirred. The Chancellor hissed, baring his sharp teeth. But Elias only returned to his notes as though the matter was too small to dwell on. Later, when the meeting ended, the corridors of the station whispered with unease. The Dravari posted more guards, but their eyes darted at every sound, every shadow. The smaller races spoke of ghosts. The Zeeth sharpened their focus, their crystalline bodies humming softly as they pieced the puzzle together. That night, the whispers grew. Another Dravari squad disappeared. This time, the footage leaked. Security cameras in one corridor caught a shadow moving. Just a blur at first, then a clear figure. A human. The footage showed a tall, calm man in a suit. He walked as though he owned the corridor, his hands empty. The squad moved to surround him, weapons drawn. The recording showed only seconds of combat, but those seconds burned into every viewer's mind. The human moved like lightning, faster than eyes could follow, yet every strike was precise. He disarmed one guard, spun, and dropped another with a single controlled motion. A weapon was twisted free and dismantled in midair. In less than 10 heartbeats, 6 armed enforcers lay unconscious on the floor. The human adjusted his suit cuffs, looked straight into the camera for a brief second, then walked away calmly. The image spread faster than fire. The words reached every corner of the station before morning. The Dravari were furious, but their fury only made them look weaker. Their soldiers, once feared, now looked over their shoulders at every shadow. The smaller species whispered with awe. Could humans truly fight like that? Was this diplomat just a mask for something more dangerous? By the next day, the council chamber felt different. Silence hung heavier. The Dravari chancellor entered with a snarl, but even he felt the weight of the rumors pressing down. Elias Ward arrived as always, calm, polite, alone. His suit was clean, his face unreadable. But every eye followed him now. Every whisper seemed to point in his direction. The session began, but little was accomplished. The Dravari argued fiercely, demanding punishment, demanding answers, but their shouts sounded hollow. None dared accuse the human openly, not yet. None dared risk being the one to provoke him further. When the session ended, the corridors buzzed. Like hives, Elias walked through them as if nothing had changed. But the Zaith envoy moved closer, their crystalline body humming with curiosity. You are not what you seem, human. The envoy clicked softly, their voice carrying like broken glass. Elias paused, his calm gaze meeting theirs. Appearances are often deceiving. Would you judge a book by its cover? The envoy tilted their head, the crystal shifting. We judge not by the cover, we judge by the shadow it casts. A faint smile touched Elias's lips, but he said nothing more. He continued walking, leaving the Zeeth with more questions than answers. That night, the Dravari made a choice. Humiliated and desperate, they gathered their elite mercenaries, warriors, trained for war, not politics. Their armor was heavier, their weapons sharper. They were ordered to capture the phantom who had shamed their empire, to break him in silence before the council could intervene. The mercenaries waited in the lower levels of the station, hidden in the cargo bays where few dared walk. They laid their trap carefully, surrounding the corridors with sensors and alarms. No one would escape. But when Elias entered the bay, he did so calmly, as if he had been invited. His eyes scanned the shadows. His posture remained steady. The mercenaries stepped out, weapons raised. You should not have come alone, one growled. Elias adjusted his cufflinks. His voice was calm, almost gentle. I am never alone. The fight that followed was not a fight, it was a demonstration. The mercenaries moved like predators, but Elias moved like a storm. His strikes were not wild, but precise, each one disabling, without killing. A rifle was twisted from its owner's grip and broken in half. A blade meant for his chest was turned aside with a flick of his wrist, its wielder thrown to the floor. In less than a minute, every mercenary lay silent, breathing, but powerless. The security cameras caught everything. The footage spread before the Dravari could contain it. The galaxy had seen. The human diplomat was no weakling. He was no soft voice lost among giants. He was something else, something terrifying in his precision, something unshakable in his calm. And when Elias returned to the council chamber the next morning, every eye followed him with new respect, some with fear, some with curiosity. The Dravari chancellor glared, but he did not speak. For the first time, the reptilian empire felt the taste of silence. Elias bowed politely to the chamber. His voice was calm, steady. Humanity seeks peace, he said. But make no mistake, peace does not mean weakness, it means strength held in restraint. It means choosing not to destroy when destruction is possible. The chamber was silent. Even the Zaith made no sound. For the first time in its long history, the Galactic Council felt the weight of humanity, not as children, not as fragile beings, but as something far more dangerous. And in that silence, one truth became clear. The galaxy had underestimated the human, and now it was too late. The council chamber was quieter than usual. No laughter, no casual chatter, no boasting. The images from the leaked footage had burned into every mind. The lone human diplomat, moving with impossible speed and precision, dismantling mercenaries, as though they were nothing more than training dummies. It was no longer rumor. It was truth. The Dravari Chancellor sat rigid in his seat, his golden scales gleaming but his pride wounded. His tail twitched against the floor, striking it with soft, angry thuds. Around him, his guards looked tense, their eyes darting to every corner of the chamber. They no longer felt like predators. They felt like prey. Across the chamber, the Zaith envoy sat with crystal limbs folded, glowing faintly as if with amusement. The smaller races watched with awe, whispering to each other in hushed tones. For the first time in generations, the Great Council felt uncertain. And then, the doors opened. Ambassador Elias Ward walked inside as he always did, calm, straight-backed, wearing nothing but a dark suit and the steady expression of a man unshaken by storms. He carried no weapons, no guards, no armor. Yet when he entered, the chamber grew tense as if danger itself had walked through the doors. He bowed politely, then took his seat without hurry. His movements were simple, but to the eyes that now watched him with fear, they seemed like the movements of a predator choosing not to strike. The Chancellor broke the silence first. His voice was heavy with forced authority. "This is an outrage," he roared. "This council is no longer safe. A human assassin hides behind the mask of diplomacy, striking at my people in the shadows." Elias raised his eyes slowly. His tone was calm, almost gentle. "I struck no one, Chancellor. I defended myself when your men attacked me, and I made sure no one lost their lives. Can your empire say the same when you choose violence?" Gasps rippled through the chamber. Some of the smaller races nodded quietly. The Dravari hissed in anger, but the Chancellor leaned forward, pointing a sharp claw toward Elias. "You admit it, then," he spat. "You dare to raise your hand against the Dravari? Against the strongest warriors in this council?" Elias stood. He walked into the center of the chamber, his voice calm but strong enough to reach every corner. "I admit this," he said. "That humanity does not seek war. We came here with words, not weapons. We came with open hands, not clenched fists. But when your people struck me, I did not run, I did not beg. I defended myself, because peace is not the absence of strength. It is the choice to restrain it." The silence that followed was deep and heavy. Many delegates leaned forward, their eyes locked on him. The Chancellor hissed, his scales bristling. "Empty words," he snarled. "Strength belongs to those who prove it, not to those who hide behind diplomacy." At his signal, the chamber doors burst open. Dravari soldiers stormed inside, an entire squad, armored and armed, their rifles raised. They surrounded the floor, their eyes burning with hatred. The Chancellor smiled coldly. "Show us, human. Show us the strength you claim to hold." The chamber erupted with shouts, protests, and warnings. Some demanded the Chancellor stop, others called for order. But the soldiers moved forward, their weapons humming as they charged. Elias did not flinch. He loosened his tie, slipped it off, and set it gently on the podium. Then he rolled up his sleeves. The first soldier lunged. The council chamber became a storm. Elias moved faster than eyes could follow. A rifle was twisted free and dismantled, in 2 motions. A soldier was thrown across the floor with a single sweep of his arm. Another strike dropped an armored warrior, not with broken bones, but with precision to leave him unconscious. Elias weaved between them like water through stone, never stopping, never stumbling. Gasps and shouts filled the chamber as the scene unfolded. The smaller races leaned forward in awe, their eyes wide. The Zaith's crystal body pulsed with faint light, as if resonating with excitement. One by one, the soldiers fell. Not dead, not crippled, just silent, unconscious, and defeated. And when the last soldier collapsed to the floor, Elias stood in the center, breathing steady, not a drop of sweat on his forehead. He adjusted his sleeves, straightened his jacket, and looked calmly at the Chancellor. "Strength," Elias said, "is not in how loudly you roar, Chancellor. It is in how precisely you act." The chamber was silent. The Dravari Chancellor's mouth opened, but no words came. His pride battled his fear, but fear won. For the first time, his gaze broke. He looked away. Elias turned, facing the entire council. His voice carried across the chamber, calm and steady, yet powerful enough to command every ear. "Humanity does not come here as conquerors," he said. "We do not come to rule. We do not come to enslave. We come to offer peace. But peace is not weakness. Strike us, and we will defend ourselves. Threaten us, and we will remind you that humanity has survived on death worlds, in storms, in wars that left our soil scarred. We know suffering. We know war. And because we know these things, we choose peace. But do not mistake restraint for weakness." The words struck deeper than any weapon. The smaller races leaned forward, some whispering in agreement. Others nodded, silently. The Zaith envoy let out a faint clicking sound, a rare sign of respect. The Chancellor tried to speak, but the Council's murmurs drowned him. The tide had shifted. No one laughed at the human now. No one dismissed his words. Elias bowed slightly, then walked back to his seat. He picked up his tie, tied it neatly, and sat with the same calm expression as always. But the chamber was no longer the same. Every eye watched him with a new awareness. Every whisper carried his name with a mixture of respect and fear. And the Dravari, once the loudest in the room, sat silent, their pride shattered. Later, when the session ended, Elias left the chamber as calmly as he had entered. But behind him, the whispers grew. "Did you see him?" One envoy whispered. "He fought like a machine." "No," another answered. "Machines break. That was something else." The Zaith envoy watched him go, their crystalline body glowing faintly. To their mind, one thought echoed louder than all others. The galaxy has woken something it does not understand. And as Elias walked the long corridor back to his quarters, he thought only one thing. The Dravari had made their mistake. They had forced his hand. And now the entire galaxy knew the truth. Humanity was no longer the child at the table. It was the wolf in Diplomat's clothing. The council chamber had never felt so heavy. The air itself seemed to press down on every delegate, thick with the memory of what they had witnessed the day before. The footage of the human Diplomat dismantling an entire squad of Dravari soldiers had already spread across the galaxy. No wall, no sensor, no silencing order could stop it. From the smallest outposts to the grandest capitals, every race had seen a lone man stand against armored warriors and win without hesitation. The Dravari Chancellor sat rigid on his throne-like seat, his golden scales dimmed under the lights. His eyes burned with rage, but beneath the fury was something he had not felt in centuries: fear. His empire had always ruled through strength and intimidation. But now that image was shattered. His warriors had fallen, his voice had faltered, and the galaxy had seen the Dravari silenced by a single human. Across the chamber, the Zaith envoy glowed faintly, their crystalline body humming with satisfaction. They had always valued intelligence and strategy, not brute force. To them, the humans' demonstration had been more than violence. It had been art. The smaller races, too, whispered with excitement. For once, someone had stood against the great powers and survived. Then the doors opened. Ambassador Elias Ward entered, just as calm as ever. His suit was neatly pressed, his tie perfectly straight, his steps measured. No guards followed him. No weapons weighed on his belt. Yet when he entered, the chamber grew silent, as if the very air recognized him. Every eye turned, every voice hushed. He walked to the center of the chamber, bowed politely, and raised his voice, not loud, not angry, but steady and controlled. "Members of the council," Elias began. "Yesterday violence was brought into this chamber, not by humanity, but by those who believed peace was weakness. I defended myself, nothing more. But I will not allow silence to twist the truth, so let us speak it clearly." He paused, letting his words sink into the room. The smaller delegates leaned forward, eager to hear more. Even the great powers dared not interrupt. "Humanity came here with open hands," Elias continued. "We sought friendship, cooperation, and peace. We did not come with fleets, we did not come with armies, we came with trust, and what was our welcome? To be mocked, to be struck, to be tested with violence." His eyes swept across the chamber, calm but piercing. "And yet we answered with restraint. We showed that we can fight, yes, but we also showed that we do not kill without reason. We showed mercy, even when mercy was not shown to us. That is humanity. That is who we are." The Zaith envoy pulsed with soft light. A murmur of agreement ran through the smaller species. The Dravari Chancellor slammed his tail against the floor, desperate to regain control. "Do not listen to this child," the Chancellor roared. "He is no diplomat. He is a soldier in disguise, a weapon sent to frighten us. Humanity is dangerous, unfit to sit among us." Elias turned his gaze to the Chancellor. His expression did not change. His tone remained calm. But his words carried a weight heavier than thunder. "You are right, Chancellor," he said softly. "Humanity is dangerous. Because we know what it means to fight. We know what it means to bleed. We know what it means to survive when everything around us says we should not. But that danger does not come from cruelty. It comes from strength, and from the choice to use that strength wisely." He stepped closer, his eyes never leaving the Chancellor's. "You see, Chancellor, you and your empire believe strength is measured in how many you conquer. You believe fear is the same as respect. But you are wrong. Strength is not in how many you crush. It is in how many you protect. Respect is not given out of fear. It is earned through restraint." The chamber fell silent again. The Chancellor opened his mouth to reply, but no words came. His jaw tightened, his pride fighting against the truth. But even he could not deny what all had seen. Elias turned away, facing the council as a whole. "I will say this only once," he said, his voice like steel wrapped in silk. "Humanity offers peace. We offer friendship. We will work beside those who seek a better future. But if our hand is struck again, if our people are harmed, then those who provoke us will learn why humanity survived every death world we called home. They will learn why we endured storms, famine, war, and fire, and why we are still here. We are peaceful by choice, but we are not weak. Never mistake restraint for weakness." The words rang out like a verdict. For a long moment, no one spoke. The council chamber was frozen, every delegate caught between awe and fear. Then slowly the whispers began. Some spoke of respect, others of caution, but not a single voice dared mock the human again. At last the Zaith envoy rose, their crystalline bodies shimmering. "The consortium recognizes humanity," they declared. "Not as children, not as beggars, but as equals. We vote in favor of their admission to this council." One by one, the smaller species followed. They had always feared the wrath of the great powers, but now they saw a new possibility, an ally who would not abandon them, who would not see them as tools or slaves. Humanity had shown not just strength, but the wisdom to wield it with care. The vote passed. Humanity was admitted into the council. The Dravari Chancellor slammed his claws against the podium in rage, but his voice was drowned by the chamber's decision. His empire could not fight everyone at once. To resist was to stand alone, and even his pride was not blind enough to risk it. He lowered his head, silent at last. Elias bowed to the chamber. "On behalf of humanity, I thank you. We will not betray this trust. May the future we build together be one of peace." The session ended. Delegates left in groups, their voices buzzing with new respect. The smaller species smiled as they walked, hope lighting their eyes. Even the great powers who once scorned humanity now looked at Elias with caution. The galaxy had changed. Elias walked the corridors alone, as always. His steps were calm, his posture relaxed. To any who passed him, he looked like nothing more than a diplomat, a man carrying papers and promises. But to those who had seen him fight, who had heard his words, he was something else. He was proof that humanity was not to be underestimated. As he returned to his quarters, Elias paused before a wide window. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, silent and cold. His reflection looked back at him, calm and steady. He thought of Earth, of the people who trusted him, of the soldiers he once commanded, of the scars he carried inside. He had not wanted to show this side of himself. He had hoped words would be enough. But sometimes the galaxy needed a reminder that peace was safest when protected by those who understood war. Elias adjusted his tie, straightened his jacket, and turned away from the stars. The galaxy had seen the diplomat. The galaxy had glimpsed the soldier. And from this day forward, the galaxy would never forget the human who walked into the council chamber alone and left as a force none could ignore.